Loaded Sport.
Does he sit second, man?
No, I don't think he does. I think Kevin Keegan probably sits second.
Oh God, what a scandal.
Austin Eckler versus the Cards. Go and fuck the lot of you.
I think Tom Naylor's going to be the nailed-on holding midfielder, so it's just who goes...
Unbelievable. He's not even realised he said it.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of Loaded Sport. The lads are back. We have got a full squad and plenty to talk about across the sports tonight, today, this morning, this weekend, depending on when you're watching or listening. Joining me, first of all, is the man that has been here through thick and thin while we've all taken a bit of a break at one point or another. Aggy, how are you, mate? How's your week been?
It's been good, thank you. I obviously had a bit of a shorter week this week, so it's only been my second day working so far, and I'm about to reach the weekend, so it's all good, thank you.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it as well, mate. That was much chirpier from you, so yeah, very good, mate. Good to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed the long weekend, and we'll get stuck into what you got planned for this weekend towards the end of the show. Also joining us, not only have we got the return of the fourth man of Loaded Sport, we have got the return of the quest for the brand deal, the Under Armour brand deal. Sam, the hat is back after 2 weeks missing. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Back with a bang. Under Armour, hit me up. You know what to do. I'm here. I'm ready. Let's get this fucking show on the road, boys.
Absolutely. And last but by no means least, the man that has just enjoyed a lovely golfing holiday with the lads, Kemp. Welcome back, mate. Break down the holiday before we get stuck into proceedings this week.
Mr. Dawson, Mr. White, man with the mic, you little treasure trove of treats, you. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to be back. Thank you for holding down the fort, the both of you. Much appreciated while I've been away, and obviously Sam as well.
I'm a long afterthought.
I literally about to say the same.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, I can't really remember much of it. You know, when you've had like 4 days back at work, it's like it just feels like a dream. It was like a fever dream. It didn't really happen, but no, amazing golf, amazing weather, amazing times. We crowned and christened a new nickname pretty much for everybody. El Ico for Doggy, El Bobo for Dibs, Bobby Charlton hair, and Much for Mudge, because in Spain they pronounce the J's rather than actual J. So Mudge's name is Muck, which obviously we had quite a lot of fun with out there. But yeah, really enjoyed it.
Do you want to go into your nickname and why, or should we move on?
That's move on to the courses. So we played. I showed you the picture from La Manga, one of probably the best course we played, where Arnold Palmer holed out for an eagle on the last hole, and it's a really historic golf club with an unbelievable setting, and really good. Really enjoyed it, and got a little memento as well from La Manga. So this is a Titleist Pro V1 ball. For anybody that doesn't know, that's basically the best ball in golf. And on the side of it, as you can see there, La Manga Club.
Guessing you'll be playing with that anytime soon.
Absolutely not. I've got a couple in my bag.
Glass box.
I've got a couple in my bag that I bought and I'm going to play with, but this one that's staying on the desk, and that's for me. So unbelievable time. Really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed listening to the podcast while I was out there as well, while I was away. So again, thank you, boys, and ready to get back to it.
No problem. Anyway, fuck your golf. I want to know what I'm interested in. Number one meal. What best meal over there? Talk to me about food, baby.
I'm quite interested in the question there, because I've asked Dog, and I'm interested to hear if Kemp has the same answer, for a reason I'll explain after.
I feel like I know what Dog said.
What do you think Dog said?
Paella.
Paella. Yeah, you've got to say that with you. Authentic.
And the reason that I think he said it because he shared it with me.
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, I thought so. I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that for me, because it was nice. The food was nice out there, but the Spanish aren't really like renowned for they're not really foodies, are they? They're just, it's not really that sort of place. But I think the best food I had out there, and it might sound really basic and people might think, oh, that's just fucking pathetic. But after I'd played a round of golf in lovely hot weather, I was just about to chill for the rest of the day, a pint of beer, pat of Amstel or Estrella, and a club sandwich.
Oh, no, I respect that.
Club sandwiches over there were absolutely outstanding. And when you played around the golf, oh, mate. And when you played around the golf, you got a beer in your hand. For me, that was the best meal and that was the best food out there because it was just when do I ever have a club sandwich over here? You don't. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought they were very, very good and the perfect little aperitif for the evening's antics.
Good lad, a good answer. Like it.
Great choice of word, and it is a tremendous link. You mentioned Spain, you mentioned Australia, and to celebrate your return, mate, I've poured a pint of Australia right here. So before I take a right big gulp out of it to start proceedings, sticking with Spain under 21s. We're in the Euro 2000, the Euro 2003 under 21s, or whatever way you want to word it, but it's not
Euro
that way.
2003, we're back. We're back in the good old days.
I've not started 2023 under 21s Euros. We're in the final against England. We previewed it last week on episode 56. Sam made some great points in terms of the impact that it could or should have on the senior squad, but England did come out 1-0 winners, and I think despite Curtis Jones scoring the goal, the name that everyone was talking about was James Trafford of Manchester City and presumably soon to be Burnley, with a 97th minute penalty save and then following that up with another save as well. So, Sam, I'll hand it over to you, mate, while I take a big drink of this beer.
Can't do it, mate. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I cannot rob the man of his one chance to authentically get it in. Aggie, take it away, mate.
I'll leave it with Aggie then while I have a drink. Cheers, lads. Good to see you.
It's coming home.
No, it's come home. You fucking butchered it. You butchered it.
No. I'll spit the beer now. Fucking hell.
The one chance you had to say it and you butchered it. For fuck's sake, Gag.
Nope. I'll keep on saying it's coming home because we've still got more tournaments to go out there and win. And
does it not count, does it, unless it's a senior squad?
Oh, of course it counts. Of course it
Well,
counts.
say it then.
I won it, but okay. It's come
I've got
a question.
Yes.
The World Cup in 2026 in America, Mexico, and Canada.
I'd love to go. Do you reckon we'll be big enough to get some kind of press pass by then?
So we get press passes for MetLife.
We'll piss it. We'll piss it. We'll be on TalkSport by then. 3-year deal.
Oh, easy. Sam and Jordan and Sam. Morning arguments.
ripping me to bits.
No. if anyone here, it's Kemp and Simon Jordan. Just Kemp chatting absolute shit and Simon Jordan getting in a twist over it.
He would get in a big twist over it, wouldn't he? If we do win that tournament, Aggie, and the men's senior team do win that tournament, obviously Southgate will have had to have gone by then if that's going to happen. But if we do win that, are you then going to turn around at the end of that tournament and say it's coming home?
I'm not, for the simple reason we'll have won all of them and we'll be reigning champions across all levels.
Well, we've not won the Women's World Cup yet.
Fidel Skinner did mention that in 96 or 98, did they?
Aggie Ally, we've not won the Women's World Cup.
The Euro, we're the defending European champions, are we not?
Yeah, but we didn't win the Women's World Cup, did we?
That's coming soon, though. That's coming soon here on Load of Sport. We'll document it.
There you go. Lovely little segue for you there, boys. You're welcome.
Love that. Anyway, Sam, the final. James Trafford, the hero.
Yeah.
I know it kind of takes away from what we spoke about last week, but just as a game, as an occasion, as a trophy, as a moment, talk us through it.
I didn't watch it all, mate. So I literally put it on. I put it on with about 10, maybe even 5 minutes left to go. Seeing England were winning 1-0. Funnily enough, I had gone to the Lotus Lounge in Alfred, all you can eat Chinese, and made an absolute mess of myself. I was I just pulled up back to house, checked my phone. Because you should never do that while you're driving. So I pulled up, checked the phone, seen 1-0. I thought, you know what? I've got to quickly put it on. Obviously, it were on UEFA.com. I know we're on Channel 4, but I still went for UEFA.com. Watched the last 5 minutes of it, and it was just an onslaught of Spain, as you'd expect, just lumping ball in England camped on the edge of their own box, and VAR, lo and behold, decided to give a penalty on the 97th minute, literally last kick, pretty much of the whole tournament. Spain striker
Levi Colwell, and many others, the player of the tournament by the end. So unlucky for him. Unbelievable player. What a player he's going to be. But yeah, obviously then Trafford come out with an unbelievable. It went an unbelievable penalty save. Actually, I won't big it up that much. It was just a fucking clutch penalty save. Poor penalty by or any stretch of the imagination. Really, nowhere near corner. Good eye for the keeper, but you've got to save it. You've got to go the right way, and he did. It was the drama of that. With last kick of the game, fantastic. So yeah, England rightful winners over the whole tournament. Not conceded a single goal. That would have been the first time they'd have conceded a goal, and it had been from the spot kick. So.
not even a goal from open play. So what a tournament for the boys. That back four. I know we discussed last week that going forward, they didn't really have too many options that excited us. Your Anthony Gordons and that sort of players, but you're looking at the back four, and if they're going that long without conceding a goal, especially the centre halves, because that's where England are quite weak, the senior squad. So yeah, it's brilliant news for us as a nation and the under-21 boys.
Yeah, definitely. And after what happened at the World Cup, it's nice to be back on the good end of penalty drama, which we know England, if anyone, rarely sees the positive side. But yeah, it was good to see. But Kemp, James Trafford, a name that you've mentioned quite a few times, with Sheffield United potentially needing a goalkeeper going into the Premier League, someone that you were hoping Sheffield United would chuck some funds at to get. It looks like your fellow promoted team Burnley will be signing him, but that's got to be a big moment for him, hasn't it? And really puts him in the spotlight, because let's be honest, is he going to be getting in the City team anytime soon? No. So unless he goes out on loan again, he needs to look at a move to really sort of secure himself that first team consistent football. So what do you think that will do for him as a name that you already had on your radar for your club?
Yeah, it'll only work wonders for him, and yeah, you'll get exposure and you'll get minutes in maybe the City B team, playing in the whatever the equivalent to the Johnston's Paint Trophy is now, the EFL Trophy or whatever it is. He'll get minutes in that. He'll get minutes in friendlies and under-21 games, but ultimately nothing replaces first-team football, no matter what level you're playing at. And ultimately, that's got to be the goal for James Trafford going forward, especially on the back of that performance. I think you'll see now City, it's becoming more of a dynasty. It's becoming more domination. They're becoming more of a force. And I think you look at Real Madrid and how they do things. If they've got a promising young player that they unfortunately won't be able to just give minutes to, because they're giving minutes to the more senior, experienced and sort of well-known and notorious players, they'll often put a buyback clause in the contract. James Trafford,
I believe I have seen that in the Burnley deal, that will be in place.
Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't even know that was 100% what they were doing. I just sort of surmised that's what they would be doing. And it doesn't surprise me, because I genuinely do think in 4 or 5 years' time, I think James Trafford, if he carries on doing the things that he's doing and does the right things, there's no reason why he can't be England's number one. So a really, really bright future for him. Really, really delighted to see him perform really well. Just a shame that the Blades have not quite got the purse strings to be able to pull off that transfer ourselves. But no, you know what? He's going to go to Burnley. I know he'll be in capable hands with Vincent Kompany and his team down there. So best of luck to him, and fingers crossed we see him as England's number one day.
Absolutely. And Aggy, as a man that, as Sam tried to get out of you, is the It's Coming Home mascot. England women's team have won the Euros. England under-21s have won the Euros. Next year, it's England's men's turn. Can we complete the treble on early sight, or are they, as always, going to be the one to let us down?
I feel they're going to be the ones to let us down. For the same reasons that I mention every time we speak about England, Kemp has convinced me that Gareth Southgate is not the one to help us get over the line and win a trophy. And I think he's been the one that's standing in the way of this England side for some time now. And it's kind of like people will ask why we've not won anything with the golden generation. I think in years to come, if we don't see the end of Southgate's reign as England manager, we'll be asking the same question. Why is this generation of talent not met the expectations that should be there of them? And I think Southgate's the reason for that. Of course, when it comes to the Euros, I'll be hooked on it and I'll be all aboard the hype train, shouting it's coming home and everything else. But as it stands at the moment, I'm being a realist, and I think no, whilst Gareth Southgate's in charge, we're not going to get over the line with this England squad.
Interesting, but congratulations to England under-21s. It was good to see. Well, I say it was good to see the final, at least, after the discussed lack of coverage last week. But hopefully with that win, they might stand in a better place of getting some kind of TV time. But Kemp, anything final to add on the England under-21s on it, or anything to do with it before we move on to our next subject?
Yeah, I was watching the England under-21s progress. I watched them a little bit in the final as well. And before, I've said before on the podcast about giving the under-21s a chance in friendly games and stuff like that. Just get them in. Why not? Games against San Marino, Malta, Macedonia, whoever it might be. Get them in and get them involved. And I think I've reinforced that a little bit after the performance in this tournament, because I understand maybe in qualifiers, but in friendlies and stuff like that, why not throw half of the under-21s in, half of the senior team in? It gives them experience being around the main setup, and ultimately it gives them a chance to shine. And what Sam said really has stuck with me in the last few days on the under-21 situation, in the sense that a lot of these players, they're 23 and, very, very close to 24, some of them. So, they're probably not going to be, mainstays and main players in the England setup, because you look at Jude Bellingham, who's 19, who's, he could get in the under-21s for another 4 or 5 years. And he's probably our best player, our best midfielder. So you've got to give these guys opportunities. You've got to give them a chance to prove what they're made of outside of this format. And I think going forward, hopefully Southgate gets binned off, and we see a manager who comes in who's a little bit more inventive and a little bit more adventurous, especially when it comes to friendlies and easy qualifiers. Get all these lads on bench and let's see them have a run out. Give them a chance.
You'd think, wouldn't you? I mentioned last week, obviously, you didn't have a chance to be a part of the conversation, that at the age of 22, 23, they should already be knocking on England doors, shouldn't they? Senior door. And if they're not doing that, and to be honest with you, let's be fair, 90% of them look nowhere near that level. So, yeah, for me, it always seems like it kind of jumps that generation to the under-21s, because they should already be knocking on the door of senior side. So, yeah, it is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, if they're good enough, they're already there, aren't they? Like your Trents, who's come through, and who's a bit older now, but Rashford and Jude and other names that we mentioned last week.
But give them a chance. Give them a chance to try and look good enough. Give them an opportunity to try and break in, because, like Sam said, they should be knocking on the door anyway if they are going to be mainstays. I completely agree, and that's where I say I remember Sam saying that, and it really resonated with me, and I completely agree with it. But let's just give them a shot. Do you know what I mean? In these games, what's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely. When you're playing San Marino, there's absolutely no reason to not be calling Macaulay Langstaff up and giving him a chance, is there? But it is what it is. We keep saying it, and it's not changed anytime soon. But anyway, that's international football. And again, congratulations to England under-21s next year. Hopefully, the men's senior team can complete that treble. But moving on now to the domestic side of things. And to be honest, it's been quite a quiet week when it comes to Premier League discussions, transfers, and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the main things that has been in the news over this last week to discuss is the latest in terms of Saudi Arabia's quest to become a real force within football. And I've put a list of players together that have officially moved this summer. Cristiano Ronaldo, as we know, kind of opened that door, was the first domino to fall in place. But this summer, names like Brozovic, Benzema, Kante, Jota, Celtic one, not Liverpool one, Ruben Neves, Koulibaly, Firmino, Mendy, Milinkovic-Savic have all moved to the Saudi Arabian League to play there next season. And it's also been heavily rumoured that Fabinho, the Liverpool midfielder, is pretty close to having a fee agreed for him to then discuss personal terms. And the name that has really, really been in the news, mainly over the last sort of 48 hours or so, is another Liverpool midfielder and their captain, Jordan Henderson, who looks, apparently the latest is, which has come out in the last couple of hours, he has agreed that he will be going. He'll be joining Steven Gerrard after he recently took on a manager role there, and will be getting paid around 4 times his current Liverpool wage, which, if rumours are to be believed, will be over £500,000 per week. So, and he's in his mid-30s. He's probably only got a couple of years left at his peak. So, I just want to, I don't know who wants to jump in first on this, but, you look at those names. Yeah, so Sam, you look at those names, all names that there's no one that I would say is past it. No. They're all players that could conceivably play for a top half Premier League team, and they're going to Saudi Arabia. They're not going to be playing Champions League. They're not going to be on the brightest stage, but they're certainly going to be on bigger money, and the majority of those on more money than they've ever earned. Even someone like a Karim Benzema, who's a World Cup winner, multiple-time Champions League winner, he's going to be a top paid player for Real Madrid, and he's going to be making a coin to become sort of the new face of that league alongside Ronaldo. So, what are your thoughts on the players who are stepping away from sort of the top European leagues when they're still in their prime or still around it to take on that big payday? And what does it mean potentially for the future of football on the European side of things?
I don't think it'll last long. I think it'll be a 5-year stint, and I think it'll probably fizzle out pretty quickly, like Russia did and China did. So if it's just going to follow that vein, then I probably think it won't last very long. But I mean, let's not kid ourselves too much. I'd probably say 80% of them transfers you said they're all over 30. Benzema's like nearly 37. Jordan Henderson definitely 33. He looked shot last year in that Liverpool team, and I can't blame them. I can't blame any single one of them. They're all going to go there if they're willing to pay that stupid money for the likes of Jordan Henderson. Then why wouldn't he take it? I think if he was to leave Liverpool now for an English team, I think he's not going to probably sign for a team that's probably in the top half of the Premier League. So yeah, I think go over there, enjoy a bit of sun. 2-year contract on 500 grand a week. You're laughing, aren't you? So no, I say power to them. Whether it's ethical or not, whether this money's coming from, that's a completely different matter. But while the money's there for them, I say make hay while the sun is shining, because I can't see this whole thing lasting too long. They don't seem to have the infrastructure there. It's not really it's not been an organic process, is it? The growth of their league, they're just trying to do it all overnight, which it's like, ironically, it's like building your house on sand, which is ironic for them because they are in the middle of the fucking desert. So, it's probably not going to last. I wouldn't have thought 5 years time. I would think it's probably going to fizzle out a bit, but that's just my opinion. I might well be wrong in 5 years time, and there might be new Super League and the power in the footballing world, but I can't see it myself.
Maybe so, mate. Maybe so. And you mentioned Russia and China there, and absolutely, a few years ago they did try to sort of make that jump, but for me personally, Saudi Arabia have made a even quicker advance on that, and they're getting players while they are still in some kind of range of their prime or at a decent level. I think Russia, they were buying players other than maybe a Hulk who were sort of past their prime, Eto's, your Roberto Carlos's. China as well, like the biggest name for them probably is Iniesta, who was well past his prime at that point. Could still play, of course, but was certainly not 32 to 33, that kind of thing. So I do think Saudi Arabia, because they have got that bit more money and they're clearly, in terms of their economies, that's one of the biggest reasons why they're doing it, have made very much quicker advances. But Aggie, as a more traditional man, do you worry what it could potentially mean for the future of football, or where players could end up, where before we might see them come into the Premier League, or players fighting to be a Real Madrid player and play on the biggest stages, and what it could mean for Champions League football and things like that? Or are you not too concerned about players taking that payday that Sam mentioned while they've got the opportunity?
I think that it's a no-brainer if they get given that opportunity, like what Sam said, that they're going to take it at their ages, of course, knowing that retirement's just around the corner. Some of the players that they've signed, like you already mentioned, Benzema, I think Kante's gone over there as well. These players that, like you say, are on the home straight of their careers at the moment. When they start looking for the players like you, Rice and you, Jude Bellingham, and then they start competing, because financially they'd be able to, of course. When they start looking at them sort of players, then it'll be something that I'd start to be maybe a little bit more concerned about and think, you know what? They're trying to compete with the likes of the Premier League and, La Liga and Liga. But at the moment, it's just players that, have been there and done it and now just taking a paycheck before it's time for retirement. It's just an extortionate paycheck, which is why we're all talking about it.
I think that's a good point, to be fair, about the Rice and Bellingham lots, because I think there's only really been one superstar name that they've all been linked with, and that was Bernardo Silva, and that's kind of fizzled out over the last month or so. So I don't think there's any danger of him leaving. So don't get me wrong, there's definitely quality players in there, and some of them have still got a good 5 to 8 years left on the thing. But overall, I think there's probably an average to slightly above average players. And then you've got your old superstars, your Ronaldo, Benzema, that are going over there. But I don't think it's anything to worry about myself too much.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Sam. A great point from Aggie there of, if they start attacking sort of these really young players like your Rices, like your Bellinghams, like an Mbappe or a Haaland, the real top tier, that's when it might start thinking, oh shit, right, okay, this could genuinely change the face of football. But yeah, it could be a flash in the pan. They could get excited this summer and try and really build. And then if the quality of football isn't great next season, will that put players off going, or will they think, oh well, they're earning a massive paycheck, so I'll go there for 2 or 3 years and take it? Who knows? I think the quality of the football and how long they sustain that for. But Kemp is someone that, of a Sheffield United fan, who they could potentially bring on 1 or 2 of these players as they get towards the end. Kyle Walker, maybe. Kyle Walker's given the opportunity to, I suppose this is something that could potentially come into play at some point, but a Kyle Walker who's sort of 34, 35, season or 2 left in him before they might have made that return to a hometown club to play with their heart for the last couple of seasons. Now they've got that option of going to get a huge payday. Do you think we'll see quite a lot of that now, where players will go there as opposed to maybe returning to a hometown team that are at a decent level to play with their heart and go more with their wallet and their future for the last couple of years?
Yeah, and I think I'd do the same, to be honest. I think anybody who says they wouldn't is probably a liar, or they've got very, very, very strong morals, and fair play to them. If you're Kyle Walker, that's what you do. That's the move. You're 35, you're 36. Like you say, you've got a couple of years left. What do? Do you go back to Sheffield and, be with your hometown fans and get that adoration and whatever? That adoration is not going to pay your great-grandkids' bills. Because that's what it is. It's not. These footballers aren't going there for wealth because they've got that. They've got that in abundance. They get paid plenty where they are. I'm sure they're going there for generations.
Well, you say that it's they're paid very well up until they're sort of, let's say, mid-30s.
Exactly. This is exactly the point. Yeah. So they're going there for generational wealth. They're going there so that they play there from 36 to 38 or 36 to 40. And then when they finish, that's it. They don't have to worry about anything forever. Like, they are absolutely set. So I get it. It makes sense. Like Sam's just said, he's hit the nail on the head. Make hay while the sun shines. And you know what gives the Premier League, what gives England the divine right to have all the best players in the world? It doesn't. Yeah. So, what's the difference, in my opinion, between these players going to Saudi and these players going to the Bundesliga or La Liga? I don't watch any of those leagues, so it don't make any difference to me where they go. So, do you know what? Make hay while the sun shines. I get that it's a tricky subject and a tricky regime and stuff like that. We here on Loaded Sport don't tend to talk about that sort of stuff, and I'm going to avoid talking about any of that, as you boys have as well. But purely from a footballing standpoint, go make your money, lads. Go make your money.
I mean, we've been guilty of it as a country. We've brought fucking Sky along, for God's sake. Sky and the Premier League have absolutely monopolised football for the last 10, 15 years. So, it's not like we've got our hands clear when it comes to money and, sports watching and all that bollocks.
And there's a couple of clutch points, isn't there? You look at 92 when Sky came in, you look at Roman Abramovich coming into Chelsea. That was the real big first whale that was bringing all this money over. People talk about Man United and their spending. Well, Man United went under Fergie and before Abramovich, yes, they probably spent more than anybody else, but they also brought in more than anybody else. I think Abramovich was the first one, really, what you saw. And maybe Jack Walker at Blackburn, actually, before that. But you see these guys coming in and spending loads and loads of money that the club's actually not making real losses on the balance sheets, but paying their way to success. And ultimately, that's spiraled out of control, spiraled, and now we're in this position here with the Saudi Arabian situation. So interesting to see. I agree with all your points about, if as long as they don't take players like sort of in the prime, kind of between that 18 to sort of late 20s age, then I'm good with it. I think the one that's bothered me the most so far is Ruben Neves, and I mean, he's not the best player in the world.
No.
I just mean in terms of age. He's only 26. He's got a long time. He's probably got 10 years left in football, and he's already gone there. But
he's not a superstar, though, is he? He's not a world-class player.
But that's what I mean. That's why it doesn't bother me. Whereas if it was a 26 or 27 or 28-year-old that had, was a superstar, I'd be like, not sure about that. Which is why the Bernardo Silva one worried me. So I'm glad to see that that's on the back burner.
Yeah, and look, I've just put it out on Twitter that we're recording right now. See if we get any votes on what people's opinions are. But let us know in the Discord. Let us know on social media what you think. Kyle Walker is a perfect example, being linked with Sheffield United, and I'm sure if it looks like he is leaving Man City, a team in Saudi Arabia would come in. So put in that position, what way would you go?
I think I've seen today, and that's a good question to ask, but I think I have seen today that it is either City or Bayern Munich. I don't think there are any other contenders in for Kyle Walker at the moment, from what I've seen. But it's a good conversation to have.
I'm going to ask you, Dawson, so you've not really had too much of an input on this particular subject. Me and Kemp have just said, obviously, because it's not a current superstar, that's not being linked or going. Why do you think that's not that? Why do you think that will bother us? So when that time comes, because I think it will happen at some point. I think there will be a huge name linked to them. It's going to happen at some point. Someone banging the prime and is going to be linked to Saudi Arabia. Why do you think that will become a problem for us?
By us, do you mean like us as a sort of...
Well, yeah, us as an opinion.
In general. Yeah.
Us as an opinion. Why would it bother us if a genuine star goes?
I think there's 2 points to it. Is A, the accessibility. So you're not seeing them, on your match of your days, your Sunday football, your Super Sundays or whatever, but also the impact that could have on the quality of football that you generally would watch. So if you do watch the Premier League, if loads of players start going over there, is that going to impact the quality of the Premier League? If you like to watch your Champions League or Europa League, European football, is a load of players going over there going to impact the quality of the football that you are used to watching? Naturally, if a shitload of players go over to Saudi Arabia, there's going to be some kind of TV deal, but are there going to be enough players that would make that a great league to watch? Or are they going to, I'll be honest, I don't know how many teams there are in the Saudi League, but let's say 10. If there's 10 teams and each of those teams have got 3 or 4 above average players or really good players that you want to see, is that going to make for great watching? Is that going to make for great teams in a great league? I don't think so personally. So I think that's part of it, is there's not going to be enough people that go over there to make it a must-see league, but also the more people that do go over there, that's going to have an impact on the football that you do watch and you do have access to. So I think that for me is probably the main concern.
Good answer.
Thank you very much. But again, I'm going to come to you, mate, because Chesterfield have played their first pre-season game at home. Me, you and Kempy were in attendance on Tuesday this week to see them play Sheffield Wednesday in Drew Talbot's testimonial. Kempy will be there. I think he holds the record for shortest time between sitting in the home stand and the away stand at the same stadium. He sat in the home stand on Tuesday. He'll be in the away stand on Saturday. Got to be a world record or at least top 10. But anyway, Aggie, talk us through what you thought about the performance, playing a team that has just got promoted to the Championship. Both teams playing a relatively full-strength type or near to full strength for the majority of the game. Based on what you saw, what do you think that, what kind of confidence is it improved confidence, impacted it in terms of the season coming?
Yeah, it's improved it from a defensive standpoint. The goalkeeper, Harry Tyrer, I think performed quite well. I think his positioning still left a little bit to be desired, but I think with a young goalkeeper, you're going to expect a couple of errors here and there. He maybe came out for the ball when he didn't need to, that kind of stuff as a sweeper keeper. I think when we had possession, we maintained it well. We were comfortable, we were confident on the ball. And then we weren't afraid to push forward with the ball. What we did do is we got to the final third, and like we've been doing for the last couple of years, and me and you, Skim, we've spoken about this at length, we've not been putting the ball into the box. We've not been doing anything in the final third. We've been messing about with the ball, and sometimes it's cost us. And against a side like Sheffield Wednesday, if you're not going to have those sort of efforts, it is going to eventually cost you. I know it's only a friendly and it's not that big of a deal, but this is the time to, adjust to those sort of changes that need to be made, ready for when, the season does start. And when we made all those changes on, I think it was the 65th minute, we looked like a much fresher side, a quicker side, but we didn't have that confidence. We didn't have that composure when we were on the ball either. There were just mistakes in different areas of the pitch that ultimately led to the defeat. But no, while we had the strongest 11 on there, I think I didn't see enough from Will Grigg, but I think that's not so much down to him. That's more towards the midfield that weren't really creating those chances for him. And normally with Mandeville and King on that right-hand side, we've seen times where the ball's been crossed into the box for Joe Quigley. We've got a striker now that is probably the same sort of height as Joe Quigley, but he knows how to shoot. So give the ball to him, make those sort of chances for him. And he knows where to be as an experienced striker. And as soon as we learn to utilise him a little bit more, I think we'll be in a much better position. But in general, no, I thought it was a very good performance. Leads a lot of excitement towards the new season. And against the Sheffield Wednesday side that, like you say, for 60 minutes of the game played their strongest side, I thought we took the game to them quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely. It was just frustrating to see yet again that passing it about around the box, as you mentioned there. I was explaining to Kemp that for a lot of the season was so frustrating, and it was no coincidence that in that sort of last 6 weeks of the season where they were more direct, they were making those through balls, passing into the channels, they were much more dangerous and seeing that upturn in form that got them so close to getting promoted. So yeah, quite frustrating to see. For me, having seen a lot of games and seeing the difference, they took a backward step for me on that in that game versus Sheffield Wednesday. So I really hope that with the squad they've built, they have gone all in, that they're not going to spend the first 3-6 months of the season playing like that, because it's no coincidence. They get the ball in the box, they played exactly that. They got a ball in the box and they scored. It was an own goal, but again, they got it in the box. The rest of the game, they were messing about, passing it back. They didn't really get it in the box. They didn't really have any other clear-cut chances. And then Sheffield Wednesday made them pay with goals just after half-time and then right at the death as well. But Kemp, you were there, as I mentioned, mainly because you got to support the team playing Sheffield Wednesday. You were quite involved and quite in tune and intrigued by the chants. You found them to be quite patchy, as you said. You mainly got involved when they were talking specifically about not supporting Sheffield Wednesday. But again, seeing the non-league side, you had a couple of comments in terms of that's the difference. That's why the National League. But again, as me and Aggy have said, it does seem this off-season that they have really gone all in, as this is the season we need to go up. So based on what you saw, do you think they stand a good chance? Or if not, what are they missing?
Yeah, I think they stand a very, very good chance. The chap Dobra, is it Dobra? He's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, to say that he's in the National League is ridiculous. I mean, he could quite easily see him playing in the Championship. So a very, very good player, and one that I think if Chesterfield keep hold of him till the end of the season, I think they've done really well. I think the main thing for me, they look very solid at the back. The keeper, like Adam's just said, he made a fantastic point, and he's absolutely spot on. Looked a little bit dodgy when coming out. Kind of, I don't know if you remember Dawson, but one of the Wednesday players, he was holding the ball up, he got his back to goal, and the keeper sort of came out and rushed him, and it's like, and then he's in no man's land. It's like, what are you doing there? You shouldn't be doing that. Obviously, that's a kind of a rookie error, as you'd say. But hopefully, he'll come into it and he'll grow into the role, and fingers crossed he'll go from there. But defensively, like I say, they look pretty solid. That Dobra looks like a really, really good player. The key thing for me is Will Grigg. There's no doubt that Will Grigg will be able to score at National League level. There's absolutely no doubt in that. But Chesterfield, from what I've seen from the playoff final, from the game the other day, they fuck about with it so much. On the edge of the box, in the final third, they'll get to a dangerous position. They'll beat the press, or they'll counter an opponent, and then they'll mess about with it, and they'll let all the opposition defenders get back in position. So they need to be more clinical. And Will Grigg, you could tell throughout the game, even though he was at the opposite end of the pitch to us for the most of the time, you could tell he was sort of ready and raring to go off that last man, ready to beat the trap, ready to sort of kind of move into a poaching position and be that fox in the box. But ultimately, Chesterfield, like I say, just fuck about with it a little bit too much to be able to get that done. So, yeah, I think if they can get Will Grigg involved, and I think if they can play an attacking brand of football that suits him, I think they'll do it. The way the National League's shaping up this season, there's no Wrexham, there's no Notts County. The teams that have come down look pretty piss poor. And to be fair, I don't really know much of the teams that come up, but there is a massive gap from the North-South to the National League. So I think they'll struggle to kind of make any sort of indent at the top as well. So it's Chesterfield's to lose if they can sort that sort of attacking play out.
Absolutely. Well, one of the teams that went up was Kidderminster, who we saw in the playoffs against Alfreton and battered the favourites Kings Lynn. So maybe they could be a surprise team, but we'll get to that when we make our predictions later in a few weeks' time. But this time next week, we'll have obviously seen Town play Championship Sheffield Wednesday. Kemp will have seen them play a Premier League Sheffield United. And me and Aggy will have seen them play League One Derby. So by then, 3 games, all against teams at least 2 divisions above. We should have a good idea of the kind of football they will be playing next season. And we'll see if that affects Aggy's confidence, and I suppose mine as well, going into. But yeah, completely agree with all points made. It's time to start being direct, because they did it for the last few games of last season and they were a completely different team. But before we get stuck into the return of Kempy's Combat Corner, it's football, but it's not serious. I just want to get your thoughts on something, because it has been mentioned, but not been mentioned while we've been recording. But tonight I am wearing a Southampton shirt. It is last season's 3rd kit. I ordered it for charity. They were going for cheap. It was basically, if you order one and make a donation to charity, you can have it. Thought it was black. It's come and it's dark green. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, but I just want to get your thoughts. And Sam, I'll start with you, mate, and then we'll go from there. But wearing football shirts of different teams, I'll give you my opinion first, is for me, you know me, I've got a lot of football shirts. I've got more coming. I'm going to, like you being a hat guy, I'm going to turn myself into the football shirt guy. Aggy is the headband guy. Kempy's got to find his gimmick, but we'll get there. Maybe he'll be the mustache guy come the end of August when he grows, when he shaves everything else and keeps it. So we're all getting our gimmicks together now. We're over 50 episodes. I'm going for the football shirt. So at some point I am going to have to branch out. But for me, as long as they're not rivals, I think it's fair game personally. So Sam, where do you stand? Because you were absolutely against it when you saw I'd ordered a Southampton shirt.
Yeah, my rule of thumb in the past has normally been no one no one from England. Yeah, and you can pretty much pick any side abroad. I'm babbling on. So yeah, but I get what you're saying. I do quite like the idea of you having to do a different football shirt every week. I'm not sure your bank balance is going to thank you for that.
Say, mate, I'll keep up with it as best I can, but we'll see repeats. I'll tell you that. But there should be a decent gap between it. I've got enough now.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. If that's the case, then I do quite like it. I think you probably got to set yourself a golden rule of maybe no Premier League teams. Yeah, so yeah, it's not the end of the world, but I guess when I first seen it, I weren't too happy, I must admit.
That's fair. Kemp, you had a little shake of the head. Was that absolutely no Premier League teams or fair game, mate? Go what you want.
Not a chance. Not a fucking chance. A few years ago, I got a Man United top as a gift. And now Sheffield United are in Premier League, or while we've been sniffing around it, I wouldn't fucking touch it with a barge pole, apart from Kemp, because I play like an absolute demon at centre-back when I'm wearing Kemp, so there's no doubt about that one. But yeah, I think it's a little bit dodgy. I think teams from different countries, I think you're all right. I've got a Dortmund shirt that I used to wear. It's probably a bit small for me now, but...
You've got a beautiful vintage Barcelona with Rivaldo 10 on the back as well.
Yeah, I have got a beautiful vintage Rivaldo shirt. So I think as long as you're kind of picking one team from each country, so I won't have a Real Madrid shirt now, I won't have a Bayern Munich shirt now. You know, if I'm going to get something, it'd be Dortmund or Barca, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think it's a little bit dodgy. If it's a non-league side or something like that, then fair enough, like Chesterfield, for example. But yeah,
I've got one, and I have got my. I'm keeping a lookout for that Wrexham black kit that they've just released.
Nah, fuck that, mate. I'll be fuming with that. Nah,
it's Wales. You said not the same country.
Yeah, you did. You did. Funny you say that about
Kingdom, UK. Nah, fuck that.
It's funny you say that about the one team per country. Years ago, this is one of my mum's favourite stories. We went on holiday to Spain. I want to say Mallorca. It weren't part of mainland Spain, I don't think. And there was one particular waiter. I think it were an all-inclusive sort of thing. And there was one particular waiter that were really good with kids. You know, I think you're part of kids club and all that bollocks. And every time I see me, I made a bit of a fuss of me. I were only about probably 6 or 7 at the time. Made a bit of a fuss of me, so I loved him. Until one day, I come downstairs and I think I had the Barcelona shirt on one day. I had the Barcelona, and he went, "Hey, Barcelona, yeah, good choice," sort of thing. The day after, I made the mistake of going down in a Real Madrid top. He was fucking raging. He was absolutely. He went, "What are you doing?" I went, "What?" I'm like 6, 7 year old. I'm like, I don't know which way's up. I'm like, "What?" He went, Real Madrid. He goes, "Yesterday, what shirt did you wear?" I says, "Barcelona." He went, "You can't do that. You can't do that in Spain. You can't have Barcelona and Real Madrid." He says, that's crazy. Like, I don't think he spoke to me for rest of the holiday. It's one of my mum's favourite stories, that.
It would be, mate. She stitched you right up with that.
She did.
She would have got the shirts.
Yeah, that's definitely it, yeah. No pocket money.
Dressed him in Real Madrid shirt that morning, did she?
Right, smile, yeah. Knew exactly what she were doing. Made a point of getting him to see you in Barcelona shirt as well.
Yeah. Hey, Pedro, you seen him?
Aggie, I'll come to you for your opinion, because the lads have spoke about domestic football, but what about international football? Because I'll be honest, there are going to be a couple of international shirts, retro, vintage, whatever you want to call it, that will be coming up in future episodes. And I have also had my eye on a couple as well. I'm talking Germany, World Cup 2014 winning team, Goetze 19 on the back. I'm talking Argentina 98, Batistuta 9 on the back. So
no. Blasphemy.
I know.
You cannot have Argentina, you scumbag. No.
Argentina's bad. Argentina's bad.
Well, I've not. No, but I thought.
Might as well fucking have Iraq.
So, Aggie, what are your thoughts, mate, with that extra context?
No, mate, I'm completely against it. From club or international level, you support a team, you get their top, that's it. You don't worry about collecting different football shirts, whether it's international or your own local side. You support one team and that's it. And
can you believe...
support a team from each division, to be fair.
Can you believe that Aggie and Kempy are aligned on a footballing subject? Can you believe that? I never thought I'd see the day, ever. No. The dinosaur.
Turn up in a Southampton shirt.
We're traditional men, aren't we, Aggie? We're traditional men.
No, mate, yeah.
They cut your red, white and blue. Bleed Union Jack.
I feel like I need to have like a new thing now. I feel like I can't show my camera until we start recording. I'll do my intro, it'll just show my name, and then I'll pop up on camera to get your instant
Or
reactions
you
of
could
what
just
I'm
do your
wearing.
head like that. You could just do your head.
Yeah.
Just floating out, just see tips of your shoulder.
Hey, all right, welcome to Loaded Sport, episode 60. Bosh, Argentina.
Yeah, that's it.
1986 even, and of God.
You look like fucking Derek then.
Usually do, know that. I'm just
Or Francis Bourgeois with the camera-rated face.
Brilliant. Oh, lads, I enjoyed that. I was just going to chuck it out there and see what happened, but I'm glad I did because, yeah, it was really good. But like I said, I'm going to become the football shirt guy, a bit like Ben Foster on his podcast. He's always got a bit of something different.
Yes.
And,
to be honest with you, I think that's where I've subconsciously softened on it. I've seen him do it, and I think I've quite liked him doing that. So I think I'm kind of on your wavelength with it, I must admit.
I like it, mate. And after what Kemp and Aggy have said, mate, I appreciate having you on side. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll turn up in things that will be controversial. And like last week with the new Madrid shirt, I'm sure I'll turn up in things that get a wholehearted backing. But anyway, that's football for this week, lads. Hopefully a bit more transfer news to talk about next week. It's been a bit quiet on that front. And again, a couple more town pre-season games to give us a bit more meat to get our teeth stuck into. But for the first time in a few weeks is time for the return of Kempy's Combat Corner. Kemp, talk us through the latest in both boxing and mixed martial arts.
Yeah, what an absolute bumper weekend it was of mixed martial arts last weekend. UFC 290 coming out of Las Vegas, Nevada, the T-Mobile Arena, the fight capital of the world up until Abu Dhabi got involved on Fight Island. But there you go, we move on. Some unbelievable fights, some fantastic returns, retirement, debuts, everything. This card had it all. Starting with, we talk about the return of Kempy's Combat Corner and the retirement of Robbie Lawler. Unbelievable, an absolute legend. Defeated Nico Price 38 seconds of the very first round. And won by KO in spectacular fashion. A lot of people, including Conor McGregor, have sort of said, the 41-year-old Robbie Lawler, he's going to get the taste for it after that knockout, and he's going to want to not retire. I think a lot of people are expecting Nico Price to sort of sail Robbie Lawler into retirement, but unfortunately, it didn't go to that script, and Robbie Lawler won via KO punches to close off the prelims on ESPN Plus. So Dawson, a very, very quick word on Robbie Lawler. I don't know if you've followed Robbie Lawler's career, you know much about him or know much of a legend that he is. But
if I remember right, he had the absolute war a few years back with
Rory McDonald.
Which was absolute, probably from a neutral perspective, what you want from a fight. That was pretty much it. Like, if you were to write it, that would be pretty much. If you were to jump in a time capsule and chuck back to caveman times or the Colosseum times, that's the sort of shit you'd see right there. And the end of the fourth round and that historic moment that will always be etched in UFC history, where at the end, the buzzer for the end of the fourth round, they just stood staring at each other and would not fucking step back. Amazing. If that's not the definition of fucking warriors,
unbelievable.
That's it. That's the picture in the dictionary next to it.
Had to be dragged back to their corners so that they could get worked on between rounds. And they've only got a minute between rounds as well. They spent 10 seconds of it staring at each other. But yeah, unbelievable to see Robbie Lawler get that win and fair play to him. And fingers crossed, I hope he does stay retired, because what a better way to end your career by knocking somebody out after 38 seconds. So hopefully, fingers crossed, happy retirement to ruthless Robbie Lawler. We started the card with the middleweights, Bo Nickel versus Val Woodburn. Val was a late notice replacement for Bo Nickel. I've talked about Bo Nickel on the podcast before on Kempy's Combat Corner. This guy is the real deal. He's an all-state, all-American NCAA wrestling champion out of American Top Team. He was in Division 1 for wrestling. He's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, so he's not at the highest level in that respect, but an NCAA Division 1 wrestler. You're not going to get any higher than that in the sport. So a real contender and a real superstar coming out of the gate. And do you know what Bo Nickel does as well? He doesn't come out and wrestle fuck everybody as people will probably expect him to. He knocks people out. And he did the same thing after 38 seconds, the exact same time that Robbie Lawler knocked out Nico Price. Bo Nickel knocked out Val Woodburn with an unbelievable combination of punches and strikes. And what can this guy not do? Israel Adesanya, you're going to have to watch out, because in this middleweight division, in this 185-pound division, Bo Nickel is coming for everything. Next, we move to a catchweight fight, which was meant to be at lightweight, 155 pounds. Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner. Dan, the Hangman Hooker, on the past few years, has really, really struggled to kind of find his mojo and his momentum during COVID. He had a fight with Dustin Poirier a few years ago, and it was really close, went to the wire. And a lot of people on the back of that were thinking Dan Hooker's stock had really rose. He then got beat by Michael Chandler via knockout on Michael Chandler's debut to the organisation. He then got beat by Islam Makhachev. He did beat Nasrat Haqparast between that by unanimous decision, but then lost against Islam, lost against Arnold Allen, going down to featherweight, which I think was a wrong move for him, and I think he'll agree with that as well. Did come back with a win against Claudio Puelles, and I think everybody was expecting Jalen Turner to get the job done, but them's the breaks and them's the kicks, unfortunately. Unfortunately for Jalen Turner. Lost against Matthias Gamrot, who is an unbelievable contender and a real force in the division. But I think a lot of people are expecting Jalen Turner to get the job done. I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience with Matt Serra, Dean Thomas, and they were talking about how, it was recorded before the fights and how they thought Jalen Turner was easily going to get the job done. Well, he didn't. Dan Hooker won by split decision. I think it should have been unanimous personally, but what a fight that was! What a scrap! And really happy for the Hangman that he got a victory and he got his arm raised at the end of the night.
At Ben Musgrove.
Back to the middle. There you go. Back to the middleweight division. You're talking about Bo Nickel and Val Woodburn, and Bo Nickel definitely is going to be a contender in a couple of years' time. He is only still, I think, 25, so he's got plenty of time left. But we're talking now about kind of the upper echelons of that division, and you can't talk about that without we're talking about Robert the Reaper Whittaker. In the past 10 or 11 fights I think he's had, he's never lost unless it's been to a chap called Israel Adesanya until Saturday night. Dricus du Plessis defeating Robert Whittaker by TKO in the second round, 2 minutes and 23 seconds of the second round. I think a lot of people were thinking that Robert Whittaker would win this fight, but hoping that du Plessis would win this fight because it's a fresh matchup. We've not seen du Plessis against Adesanya. There's a lot of underlying tension and probably an ugly build going into that fight, but that's what fight sports are all about. But it was a fantastic performance by du Plessis. Really showed his class and his quality in there, and showed his presence and his ability to go toe to toe and ultimately come out with a victory against somebody as skilled and as rounded as Robert Whittaker. So fair play to him. Like I say, TKO punches against the former UFC middleweight champion of the world, and that next fight is looking as though it's going to be Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, which comes again with its own connotations. Dricus du Plessis, South African, born and raised, lived there since he was a kid. Israel Adesanya, I believe, born in Nigeria, emigrated to New Zealand, has been around, fought in different countries. I think Dricus du Plessis and Adesanya are arguing kind of whose African heritage is stronger. So that's going to be a very interesting fight and very interesting words exchanged after the fight on the weekend between du Plessis and Robert Whittaker. The co-main event for the flyweight championship of the world, the championship that, let's not forget, during COVID was very, very close to being ripped away from the UFC and defuncted as a division. And my God, has it popped back into life now. 125-pound weight limit. So all of us boys on Loaded Sport, unfortunately, would never be able to fight in the flyweight division unless Adam chopped both his legs off. But Alexander,
and fucking arse and penis. He has to go and chop himself off the hips, not the legs.
That's true. To be fair, if Adam chopped his penis off, he'd probably weigh about 115, but there you go. But in the flyweight division, Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno, the champion of the division.
Can I just point out, sorry, Kemp, I'm really apologise to interrupt, but I don't know why Aggy's sticking fingers up like we've not just paid him a massive fucking compliment.
Yeah, imagine it. Yeah.
Oh, he's like,
he's just around and said, he's got a right small penis. Yeah.
Honestly, just come back and heard Aggy and assumed it was negative. So
no
mate, we were just talking about
penis, mate.
Oh, right, no,
now it's fucking massive. But anyway, carry on, Kemp. Sorry, mate.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, cheers. So we're talking about Alexandre Pantoja against the former now UFC flyweight champion of the world, Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno with that 4 fights, counting 4 fights against Davidson Figueiredo for the UFC flyweight championship of the world, and a fight against Kai Kara France, which he won handily as well by TKO. But it was nice to see him have a fresh opponent. Like I say, he's only fought Davidson Figueiredo or Kai Kara-France since 2020. So he's been sort of tied up in a little bit in that respect. Pantoja against Brandon Moreno. They have fought twice before, one on The Ultimate Fighter, I believe it was, and one in the UFC as well, with Pantoja coming out on top both times. And that was a repeat performance today or on Saturday as well. A split decision, which I think was a little bit ridiculous. I think Pantoja quite easily won that fight. I would probably put it down as maybe 4-1, if not 3-2, but I would have it as a unanimous decision for Pantoja. And I think he was just outclassing him in terms of the grappling. I think the striking was pretty much matching, even 50-50. But, you know, in the UFC, in mixed martial arts, when the striking's 50-50, that's when you take it to the ground. That's when you see what you've got in that respect as well. And Pantoja just had too much for him. He couldn't hold down Brandon Moreno for very long, but he took him down numerous times. And that was enough for the judges to score Pantoja the win and ultimately the flyweight championship of the world. And by the way, before I move on to the main event, one unbelievable fight that was. And if anybody's looking at the 125-pound division and thinking it's not exciting enough, they're not big enough, they've not got enough power, I implore you to go and watch that fight, because it was probably one of the best fights I've seen in a long time. We then moved to the featherweight main event. I'll be honest with you, lads, it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, so my eyes were dozing a little bit during the main event, and the co-main event kind of piqued me a little bit as well, because it was so exciting. But the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. A lot of people expected it to be a bit one-way traffic, and that's pretty much what it was. Yair Rodriguez did get some good strikes in there. He is a very, very tricky striker, and does mix up his attacks really, really well. But ultimately, it just wasn't quite enough. And Alexander Volkanovski outpaced him, didn't go anywhere. He was right in his face, pressure fighter. We know that about Alexander Volkanovski, and we know that that's one of his biggest attributes. And it took its toll. 4 minutes and 19 seconds of the third round, Alexander Volkanovski got it done. A litany of punches, a fantastic combination. Volk with his fantastic conditioning, it came through again. Yair Rodriguez looked like he was slowing down just a little bit, and that was enough for Alexander Volkanovski to get that takedown and finish Yair Rodriguez on the floor. So a fantastic weekend, a fantastic night of fights. UFC 290 is in the books, and it was a really, really good event. And it's set up some fantastic and fascinating fights going forward across all of the divisions that were showcased on the night. So the next one, July 29th, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 for the BMF title. And that is just going to be the biggest donkey fest you've seen in your life. I cannot wait for it, and I'm looking forward to covering it on Kempy's Combat Corner. One thing I'm going to cover on Kempy's Combat Corner on this edition, though, before we do move on to the next stage of the show, is the heavyweight division in boxing. Now, Dawson, I've been trying to avoid speaking about the heavyweights like the fucking plague in the past few weeks. And the reason for that is because we were supposed to have Fury Usyk, didn't happen. Fury Joshua didn't happen. Joshua against fucking Wilder, and apparently that's happening. And these fights weren't being made. Usyk wasn't fighting. Fury wasn't fighting. Joshua wasn't fighting. We now look at Kempy on the downside, on the backside from Spain, and they've all got fights. What's going on?
Well, I suppose we can bring in Sam for this one, because if there's any boxing he likes, it is the heavyweight division. And yeah, it seems to have been a bit of a productive week when it comes to getting fights on the board. So AJ, Fury, Usyk all now have announced fights over the next couple of months or so. So, Sam, being the heavyweight boxing fan that you are, you usually partake when a heavyweight boxing fight's on. You stick it on a Saturday evening. What are your thoughts on the three sort of main fighters finally having a fight announced?
Meh. It's not exactly what we signed up for, I guess. AJ, no, I tell a lie. I think AJ White. I think that's a decent little scrap myself. Obviously, will it be the second time they've fought? Kemp, obviously, second time they fought, but they fought the first time was in way back when there was amateur, weren't they? Am I right?
So it's if you count in the amateur fight, it's the third fight. So
yeah,
in the amateurs they had a fight. Dillian White won that fight. In 2015, they had a fight in the pros, and AJ famously knocked out Dillian White with that crazy uppercut and flatlined him. But that was the first real fight in AJ's career where he actually got tested, which was interesting. So this will be, in effect, over the amateurs and the pros, it will be the third fight.
What's your thoughts about the Fury fight?
So I'll talk about sort of all three fights. So the three fights that were announced, as you say there, Sam, is AJ versus Dillian White 2, because obviously it's the second pro fight. Usyk versus Daniel Dubois. That's also taking place soon as well for the WBO and IBF titles, I believe. And obviously, as you just mentioned there, Sam, Tyson Fury versus the former UFC undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou. It's a cash grab. It's as simple as that. Jake Paul fighting MMA fighters. All right, whatever. It's a freak show. Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather when Floyd was 40 years of age, his last professional boxing match. Okay, it's the money fight. It's it's intriguing. It's interesting. As an MMA fan and as a boxing fan, it's interesting in the same way that a car crash is interesting. You want to look at it because you can't not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not going to be compelling. It's not going to be competitive. Tyson Fury is going to play with his food, and he's probably going to knock Ngannou out or do some really serious damage to him.
Is there any way Ngannou can win that?
No, absolutely no chance. There's no chance. There's I'd say 1 in 1,000 that Francis Ngannou wins that fight.
Right, because I'm obviously UFC got no knowledge of whatsoever. Am I right in thinking at one point he was supposed to be known as like the hardest man on the planet?
Yeah. I mean, for me and to a lot of combat sports fans, in the 90s they used to call Mike Tyson the baddest man on the planet, right? Because he probably was. To be fair, he probably was. But nowadays with the UFC and MMA, I think the way you look at it, the baddest man on the planet in terms of the baddest unarmed man on the planet. So he's got his 2 fists and he's got his legs and he's got his body. Who is the baddest man on the planet? And you have to say that the UFC heavyweight champion of the world is the baddest man on the planet. He's the biggest, he's the strongest. And also if he got in a fight with the boxing heavyweight champion, and if it was, let's say, for example, street rules, he'd kick his legs, he'd take him down, he'd choke him unconscious in 30 seconds. So that's why they call the UFC, heavyweight champion of the world, the baddest man on the planet. The way that Frank Warren is trying to sell this fight of Queensberry and Tyson Fury's promoter is he's trying to say Francis Ngannou was recorded having the hardest punch ever. And that is true-ish. That's true-ish. But also on the backside of that, and I don't even know if Frank Warren even knows this because how deep is his mixed martial arts knowledge. But in Francis Ngannou's last fight in the UFC, he fought a guy called Cyril Gane, who is a kickboxer from France. And Francis Ngannou, throughout that entire training camp, focused on nothing but wrestling because he knew that Cyril Gane would outstrike him. So while Francis Ngannou has got unbelievable power, there's no doubt about it. I've seen Francis Ngannou put Alistair Overeem, Cain Velasquez. I've seen him go through everybody, Jorginho Rosenstrike and Stipe Miocic, and send them to the shadow realm. But against Tyson Fury in a boxing match, it's literally less than a puncher's chance. So it's not compelling, in my opinion. But I'm happy for Francis Ngannou because he left the UFC. He left the UFC to get a big pile of money because the UFC weren't paying him enough, in his opinion. And you know what? He's fucking got that with this fight. So fair play to Francis. But in terms of Tyson Fury, I think it's a bit of embarrassment where you've got Usyk fighting Daniel Dubois, who's a top contender. You've got AJ fighting Dillian White, who's a real scrappy. He's fought at world level boxing for a few years. And then Tyson Fury's fighting Francis Ngannou, who's never had a professional boxing match in his life.
Sounds to me like, from what you're saying there, that Frank Warren is just purely backing on Ngannou's power. So to that end, surely this is just going to go down the same way as Fury Deontay Wilder, where he just absolutely outboxes him.
No, yes, but it'll be worse. It'll be worse because Deontay Wilder, while he was a late starter in boxing, I don't think he started boxing until his mid-20s. Deontay Wilder, Deontay Wilder had that touch of death. He when he hits you, you go. And Francis Ngannou, I would say, has got similar levels of power. But the difference is that for years and years and years, Francis Ngannou's been deploying that power in a mixed martial arts setting, Whereas Deontay Wilder, for years and years, for 10 years before he fought Fury, was deploying that power in a boxing setting. So there's differences in range, there's differences in the distance between you and your opponent, there's differences in defensive techniques. And while Francis Ngannou probably has got the same level of punching power, if you did him and Wilder on a punching machine, they'd probably get similar results. In terms of his movement, his spatial awareness, he's just not got that, because for years and years and years, he's been fighting in mixed martial arts contests, and now he's fighting in a boxing match. And it's like me, playing rugby for 10 years and then expecting to, be a starter in the NFL. It's a completely different game.
Fair enough.
And to that point as well, Sam, the thing we went to years ago in Leicester, which was like a sort of NFL panel, Martin Johnson, the former England Rugby Union captain, was there. And he played a bit of American football after his rugby career, and he said that it was the toughest thing that he's ever done. So, just to sort of back up that comparison there of being used to one thing so much, even though you then move to something that on paper might seem similar, it's such a massive transition. So, yeah, fair point. But, Kemp, I'm sure over the next few weeks and months, as we get closer to those fights, more will come out. And let's be honest, based on all our thoughts on the heavyweight division right now, are you 100% confident that all three of those fights will go ahead as planned? I'm sure there's going to be some kind of drama along the way.
Yeah, no, I think they will. Usyk and Dubois, to start with, are really sort of steady fighters. They don't tend to be pull-out merchants, especially Alexander Usyk.
I think that's the most likely, to be fair.
Yeah, I think Alexander Usyk is probably the most fighting of men in the heavyweight division, to be honest with you. He's probably the most game and the one that will literally fight anybody. So I think that one's pretty safe. And I think Alexander Usyk is going to pretty much dominate and embarrass Daniel Dubois, dance around him for a few rounds and then probably finish him in devastating fashion, similarly to how he did that to Tony Bellew in the cruiserweights to unify that division. So I think that's the one that's most likely to happen. Fury versus Ngannou, I think, will happen because there's no jeopardy for Fury. And I think there's no, Fury's going to get a big pile of money for not doing that much. So I think that one's going to be absolutely fine. The one that worries me the most probably is AJ versus White, but I think AJ understands that he needs to box Dillian White before he fights Deontay Wilder. He needs that fight. So I don't think I can see AJ pulling out. And to be fair to Tina's point, who's our friend's big AJ fan, AJ is really, really consistent when it comes to not pulling out fights. Dillian White is a little bit of a concern because he's a bit of a donkey. He's a lovable donkey, but he's a bit of a donkey. And he's one of them where, similarly to Derek Chisora, he could just randomly throw his toys out the pram and get an idea that he don't want to fight. So that'd probably be the one that I am least confident in happening, but I'm still pretty confident on it happening. And I think we will see all three fights, and I think they'll all, two of them at least, will be very compelling, and the third one will probably be a little bit embarrassing. But do you know what, Francis Ngannou, go and get your money, sir. You fucking deserve it.
And I do think that, to be fair, will still be a spectacle in terms of intrigue and interest as well. But next week, big episode, a preview and prediction from you, Kemp, in next week's show, episode 58, because it is one of the biggest fights of the year when it comes to boxing purists, and that's Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. So I'm sure there'll be people that'll be looking forward to your thoughts next week and your prediction that will go with that.
July 29th. Not only
was it 2 weeks away?
Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence, it is UFC 291 on the same fucking night, mate.
Well, I apologise then. Not next week, in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks will be a bumper edition of Kempy's Combat Corner, and then episode 60 after that, talking about it.
Absolutely. And can I just say that UFC 291 and Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence on the same night is the best night in combat sports that I can remember. That is an unbelievable night. I can't wait.
Huge claim. Can't wait to hear your preview it then and predict your thoughts in 2 weeks' time on episode 59. But that is it for Kempy's Combat Corner for another week. Aggie, I'm going to come to you now to talk us through what happened in Silverstone and also the announced and official return of everyone's favourite in Formula One, Daniel Ricciardo. Talk us through it.
Mate, finally we've seen some competition back on a Formula One grid. And for a little bit of time, it was even a fight for first place. I said last week in the little preview towards Silverstone that we're going to be looking at a very new McLaren car that Lando and Piastri could both drive, and it just so happened to be the case when they qualified in second and third place. At the first corner, Lando took past Max Verstappen, who got pole position, to take first place away from him. Piastri was very close to taking second, but in the end, Verstappen went back to his normal Verstappen ways, got past Lando back into first place, and the rest is pretty much just history, isn't it? Max went on and won it. Piastri coming in for the pits, I think we dare say cost him the chance of getting onto the podium. I think
that was tough timing, weren't it, with the safety car as well in the incident. I don't think there's huge amounts of blame on him or the team.
Oh, absolutely
it was
not.
Just a bit of, that was quite unlucky on his part, I think.
Yeah, I think they're just a bit unfair that, or unlucky, like you say, that when he came into pit shortly after the safety car came out, which meant then the top three could all pit, and he only managed to get back up to fourth place. I think if that race was maybe 2 laps longer, maybe even a lap longer, actually, I think Piastri was finishing in third place because Lewis Hamilton had come back out on used soft tyres that were running its course, and he said he'd got no grip on the back. And in the case of about 3 corners, Piastri had cut about 2 seconds off Lewis Hamilton's time. So I think Piastri could maybe have stolen third place off of Hamilton there and took a McLaren 2-3. But considering where we've been for the last couple of years, the fact that we managed to get back ourselves up to second and fourth place, I think as a McLaren fan, you've got to be quite chuffed with that.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think? Because they were brilliant when sort of Lewis Hamilton was there. He left Mercedes, and there was a noticeable and a big drop off. The last couple of seasons, also, especially with the introduction of Lando Norris, they have started to become, like you always, the best of the rest, and been in that kind of battle. They haven't started the season great. They were really poor for the first few races. They've made changes which seem to race one have been phenomenal. I mean, what a result! That's one of the best results they've had in years, other than both drivers on the podium. So, is this a case of it's there to stay now? Is it a one-off? Will other teams catch up and they'll end up falling down the pack? As a McLaren fan, with that one race, it's such a positive race off of the upgrades. What do you think that this means for, say, the next 2 and 3 races short term, but also for what they can do for the rest of the season with the teams, obviously, outside of Red Bull?
I think this is a huge step in the right direction. We mentioned that you said then that last season Ricciardo and Norris got a 1-2, and yeah, they did, and that was just a one-off that was a bit lucky by a couple of strategy errors from other drivers. The fact that at the moment the cars now begin to show a little bit more consistency. In Silverstone, Lando and Piastri performed well. In Austria, the week before, Lando performed well. So these upgrades are showing that it's not a short-term thing. It's genuinely a change that they've made for the better that's going to be a bit more of a consistent high finish for McLaren. And maybe we aren't going to compete with Verstappen because we can already tell that he's in a league of his own at the moment. And it's going to take either an error from him or some strategy error from Red Bull that's going to cost him a race. But I think at the moment, we've got to look at maybe now even battling towards, your Mercedes, your Aston Martin, and even Ferrari, because Ferrari don't seem to be at the races at the moment, so to speak. And why not? Why not? If the car's there now to make Lando and Piastri competitive, I think I mentioned it in the group chat that my only concern would be at some point, would Red Bull consider dropping Checo and looking towards Lando? I mean, we dropped Ricciardo because he wasn't quite as competitive with Lando last season. Lando was performing well in the McLaren before the McLaren got even better. Hopefully, if we can make it very competitive, it might tempt him to stay for a little bit longer. But if Red Bull decide to move on from Perez, what's stopping them from looking at somebody like Lando Norris, who's still quite young and proving what he can do in a car that's not, a front runner? So hopefully that's not going to be the case. But yeah, the other news that you mentioned, which I will mention now, is of course that Daniel Ricciardo is back on a Formula One grid. He's of course one of the most charismatic drivers I've ever seen in a Formula One grid, and he's one of the best people to watch on Drive to Survive as well. I think the grid, the sport is so much better from having him on track as opposed to as a reserve or a test driver. I was pretty surprised that teams hadn't gone for him before the season had even started, considering what he'd managed to do with Red Bull, with Renault, and of course what he'd managed to do with the McLaren. Even though he weren't beating his teammate, he was still doing quite good things. But yeah, AlphaTauri, of course, the sister team of Red Bull, if you will. Maybe where a couple of drivers like Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly in the past have kind of plied the trade and then moved on to a Red Bull seat. Is it a chance for us maybe in a couple of years' time, if Ricardo can keep this seat warm, move on to see the second coming of Max and Ricardo as a team.
Who knows? AlphaTauri, as you mentioned, are the feeder team, and we've seen drivers like Gasly and others make that move up. So it'd be a story, and I'll tell you what, it'd make for great coverage to see all the behind the scenes stuff on Drive to Survive. But yeah, completely agree. He's my favourite driver in terms of currently in the sport. Really, really happy to see him back on the grid. As I keep saying, and I've been saying for weeks, even before this was announced, the sport is better for having him on the grid. So yeah, really happy to see him back. But Sam, you caught a little bit. I know we spoke last week, and I suppose I'll come to Kemp as well, because I did say at the time of asking that it was a question I was going to ask when you were both on the episode or an episode at the time. But we spoke about what could potentially change in Formula One to make you a fan, and you're someone that's never really mentioned any kind of fandom. But you were commenting on Sunday about Lando and, Max winning again and that kind of stuff. So you are sort of catching little bits here and now, obviously, with your current living situation. That's the main reason why. But has Silverstone, as what happened, changed your opinion a little bit? Do you think there is a spark there that could potentially be lit? Or is it just a case you're watching it because it's there and you'll forget about it once when that time comes?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. I think you're watching it because it's Sunday afternoon, into easy watching. Just I had it on, just in the background, kept an eye on it. My biggest takeaway from the whole event, from whole of Silverstone, I watched it right at the start of it. I watched the not the guy on the thing,
Ted Kravitz.
That's the one. Yeah, I watched him.
We got there in the end.
Didn't watch any of the race bar, anything after I watched it up until I watched everything after the safety car. And the one biggest takeaway I have from it was, what the fuck was that national anthem? What on earth? Yeah. What on earth was Damian Lewis thinking? By any time you hear, I'm going to put a jazzy spin on it, you know it's not going to work there. So, yeah.
Who's to blame though, him or whoever gave him the gig?
Yes, is the answer to that question. Yes, is the answer to that question. Everybody is to blame for that performance. Okay. Shocking, but no. To be fair, I would say I didn't not enjoy it. It were all right. It was just nice to have on it background, just keeping an eye on it. Like you say, there, it's something you've spoken about. Thibaut Blue Teeth. Just it would be nice to not know who's going to be a clear cut winner going into it every single week, and that's like a bit of a too big a pill to swallow for me. I think to really enjoy it at the minute.
Yeah. Makes you feel better, mate. I managed to predict second and third as well.
It doesn't actually, mate. I couldn't get fucked.
Well, it makes it better, doesn't it?
I'm only joking, mate. No, I'm only joking. No, it's just what it is, isn't it? But no, Lando, big fan of him.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's one that I've got my eye on for if and when Red Bull move on from Perez, they make a push for him. But it was nice to see, and even as a Red Bull fan,
I've seen you say that, right? I was trying to just ask you about that. Right, so the very reason, obviously, the worst thing about F1 at the minute is Verstappen's domination or Red Bull's domination. Surely Lando going to Red Bull's just monopolising the entire fucking sport.
Why would Aggy, would you answer that from an outside perspective, seeing someone like a Lewis Hamilton moving up to a Mercedes and seeing the domination he had?
I don't know what you mean by monopolising the sport. If Verstappen's already winning everything and Red Bull's already winning anything, I think all they're trying to do is just, strengthen a little bit, because if you've got a driver that's finishing first and your other driver's finishing outside the top 10 on a bit more of a regular basis, from a constructor's perspective, you're losing out on points there, and you need somebody that's going to be able to keep your number one driver on his toes. Otherwise, there might be a little bit of boredom and Verstappen might retire sooner, and it's going to cost the team a little bit. It's happened with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. I think Lewis won it for a few years, then Nico stepped in and he won the championship, and it kind of kept Lewis on his toes a bit. You want a driver that's going to be competitive alongside your number one, just to add a bit more excitement within the team. I think really competitiveness within the team, and I don't think Checo's doing that at the moment. I think it's just one driver performing out of his skin, and every single week it's just Max. I think if they get somebody like Lando, then yeah, it might be monopolising it, but if they've got the money to do so and Lando's happy to go there, not really much we can do about it.
Just seems
Lando
like it's
Calrissian.
Every time I hear that name, that's what pops into my head. It just seems like it's the Man City of F1, aren't they? They've got all these charges hanging over their head. They're not really penalised for it. They just crack on with it. And then now they're keep getting talked about Lando moving over to. I don't know whether that's official or that's just Dawson hoping, but
That's me hoping, like, because I think he deserves that chance at, sort of one of the bigger teams to really show. Look at George Russell. He was at Williams for a couple of years, who were, and well, not still are technically at the minute, but were the worst car in the grid. But based on his driving ability in that car, he was given the opportunity to show what he's really about. And unfortunately, the Mercedes car hasn't sort of helped him show that fully as of yet. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him given that opportunity in a top tier car. But even as a Red Bull fan,
go on, sorry.
I was going to say, even as a Red Bull fan and a Max fan, even I got a bit excited when Lando overtook Max going into that first corner and went ahead and was in the lead for a bit, because yeah, it was good to see. It's motor racing, you want to see racing, and that includes overtaking and a challenge for the top as much as a challenge as it has been so far this season, second and third spot on the podium. But Kemp, we'll close off F1 with just a question to you. As I mentioned, I asked Sam a question last week, and it was a question I was going to save for both of you. But you have, just unlike Sam, in the past, mentioned little bits here and there about F1. You've made sort of comments along the lines of, when it's not just Max winning or it's not just Lewis winning, let you know. So that to me gives me the impression that you're open to watching it, but not while it's not competitive. So for you, is there something that Formula One can change or that they need to do to make you be someone that is a fan of watching the sport?
Yeah, and if you did get Lando Calrissian driving for the best team, then he'd be making the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs, so that wouldn't be competitive at all. But yeah,
and Sam is wearing a Star Wars t-shirt tonight.
There you go. That was purely for Sam. That was purely for Sam. But yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Motor racing itself, it's very, very compelling. I think it's one of the most compelling things to watch that you can possibly watch. Top Gear did an episode a few years ago where they did rally cross, and they all they were racing on dirt track, and then it was on the circuit, and it was really, really compelling to watch. I've even seen some NASCAR and some IndyCar and stuff like that, and even Formula E. I've seen bits of that, and that's really, really entertaining. The one thing that will always stop me watching Formula One is the fact that they all don't drive the same car. It's, in my opinion, absolutely fucking ridiculous. I understand that there's technicians and all this bollocks about, we've got the best car this year and it's Constructors' Championship and all that. For me, while ever that's a thing, and that will always be a thing, I will never be interested in Formula One, because it's not about who the best driver is. It's about who's got the boffiest engineers. So for me, Formula One's probably the least interesting sport. I'd probably rather watch Wimbledon, and that's saying something about my thoughts on feelings on tennis than watching Formula One. But at least they use similar rackets and the same balls, and they've got the same sort of advantage, rather than in F1 where you're using different kit. So
advantage, unbelievable advantage.
That's another one for the tally for Sam's unbelievable tracker. But yeah, break this upcoming weekend. Hungary next weekend. Aggy, have I got that right, in Budapest?
Yeah,
so, Aggy's always hungry.
Yes, he is. He's been to Budapest purely because he thought there were free food everywhere. He was sorely mistaken when he turned up. But episode 58 next week, we will preview Hungary, and it'll be interesting to see, based on the news that comes out between now and then, if McLaren are set for another big weekend or if it was just a flash in the pan. But we will see. We'll very quickly cover the cricket, the third test of the Ashes series. England finally got off the board and reduced the deficit, and now only are behind 2 tests to 1. Ben Stokes in the first innings, yet again, captain fantastic, putting the team on his back after a shocking start, and overall a shocking innings, to be fair, without him. And then in the second innings, England chasing around 250 to win. Just looking at some of the scores here, Harry Brook was the hero in that. England looked like they were somehow going to throw away a relatively low target, but a 50-plus partnership between Harry Brook and Chris Wokes got them over the line before Harry Brook went out, and then Mark Wood came in and played like he had a table reservation at a restaurant. In a couple of hours' time, he just started smashing the ball everywhere to get them over the line, and England won by 3 wickets to, again, make the overall Ashes series score 2-1 to Australia with 2 to play. They line up next. It will be next week, so no preview as of yet at Old Trafford. Tina will be turning up. He's there for day 5. So if the series so far is any indication, he is in for an absolute treat. But Kemp, I'll come to you very quickly, because you, from what I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, please, watched quite a bit of this series. considering that you've made your thoughts known about Test cricket. You're not the biggest fan. We've spoke about it already on an earlier episode. But again, with England now 2-1, with the close finishes in Australia's 2 wins, what for you, as someone that hasn't been the biggest Test fan in the past, what is this series doing for you as in terms of turning you into a Test cricket fan?
Changing my mind completely, changing my perspective completely. I think Test cricket now is probably the most compelling version of cricket that I've watched. It takes a bit of patience.
Damn time.
Yeah, it takes a bit of patience, and it takes, you need to be all right about it. But I think I kind of saw it in the past as IPL brilliant, Big Bash brilliant. They just knock it out of the park. It's fantastic, but the stakes are just so much higher in Test cricket, and that's what we watch sport for at the end of the day, isn't it? So Wokesy and Wood, I mean, I did not expect those two to be the boys to win the Test for us, but do you know what they did? They came in clutch. Mark Wood had a strike rate of 200. He got 16 runs off of 8 balls, 1 4 and 1 6.
Came in and started swinging like he was playing in Major League Baseball.
I could not believe my eyes when I saw that. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought it was night watchman, get the runs, be conservative, one here, one there, and
that was it. They had a full day to go as well, so he had absolutely no need to do what he did.
I expected it, but you know what? He got his cock out and he said, "Fuck it, I'm having it." And you know what? Like you said, I think he did have a table reservation because he weren't hanging around there, were he? And to be fair, it was in Leeds, and we all hate Leeds, don't we? So I can see why. But an unbelievable performance from those two boys. A very, very unlikely duo, as unlikely as me and Adam having the same football opinion earlier on in the show. But you know what? Good things come from unlikely duos sometimes. So delighted with it, and it heats things up for the 4th Test. So very, very much looking forward to that.
Absolutely, and the only sort of theory or reason I can give for Mark Wood just going out there and smashing it all over the place when he had all the time in the world was the adrenaline was still probably pumping after that 95-mile-an-hour ball that he bowled earlier in the Test to get that wicket. So 94.8 miles per hour. What a ball! What speed! That is really top tier. So the adrenaline must have still been pumping after that. So he just went out and thought, "Fuck it, I'll send it." But Kemp, very quickly, we'll not cover it too much because we'll get stuck into it next week more. But this weekend started today, recording on Thursday, the Scottish Open with the golf leading up, the precursor, the warm up for next week's Open in Liverpool. I know at the time we're recording, we will be in round 1, but we will talk about it in more depth. But have you got a bit of an early prediction, or is it a case of see what happens this weekend and then get stuck into it properly next week?
Yeah, traditionally this weekend is sort of the warm up. It gets everybody getting used to the surface, getting everybody used to the weather, and getting everybody used to what they're going to be playing in the Open next week at Royal Liverpool. So I don't think there'll be that much of a prediction coming from me this week. Let's see how the boys get on this weekend, and then I'm sure we'll be making some first cut and some overall predictions next week. But the Open for me, it's my favourite major. I think the Open is the most prestigious tournament in golf. A lot of people think the Masters, a lot of people think the US Open, a lot of people think the Ryder Cup. But in terms of an individual performance and an individual tournament, I think the Open is as higher honour as you can possibly get. So we're really looking forward to Royal Liverpool next week, and fingers crossed McIlroy can put a good showing in this weekend, so that hopefully next week he can make a maybe break his duck. So we'll see on that one. I'm looking forward to it. But one thing I didn't anticipate and didn't appreciate before I played golf abroad, which I did very recently, as we discussed at the start of the show, is that the surface and the soil and the conditions are very, very, very different. So the lads that are used to playing in hot weathers, maybe in Florida or in Spain or in Southern Europe, where it's a little bit nicer weather than it is here, or at Royal Liverpool, they'll be getting used to everything, and they'll be getting to grips with the course. So home field advantage for a few local lads, Fitzpatrick and Rory to name a couple. I'm sure we'll get stuck into that next week. Dawson, have you got any early front runners perhaps for the Open between the 20th and the 23rd of July?
Not necessarily. I think the best thing about this is the fact that it is over here, so nice and early. If you want to get your feet up next weekend and watch, you don't have to wait till middle of the afternoon for it to start and watch it late into tonight. But Rory McIlroy has started the Scottish Open 6 under. He's tied third, so maybe again a precursor to what he fancies doing next week. But I'll have a good read. I'll do a bit of research as I always do, sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll pop a couple of predictions in the Discord as well as discussing them on the episode. But I'll put them in the Discord beforehand, so no one can say, "Well, you're only saying that because they've had a good first round."
If he holds on to it, if he holds on to his lead at the Scottish Open, and not lead, but holds on to his good score because he's 6 under, and the leader I think is 9 under at the moment. So if he does hold on to his score and ends up winning the Scottish Open, then I will be confident. But Rory McIlroy, as we've said in the last few years, he started really well, made the cut really comfortably, and then unfortunately fallen away at the end. So like you say, fingers crossed he can get some momentum from the Scottish Open this weekend.
Absolutely. But lads, it's time to close on the darts. It is the return of the match play tournament, considered one of the 3 trophies that go into the Triple Crown. It's one of the biggest events on the darting calendar. Sam, you asked me to put together, we've discussed it enough now that you became a darts fan in the World Championship. In the final, you watched the Premier League, you've enjoyed it, you watched the World Cup, you enjoyed it, and you now consider yourself to be a darts fan, but this is your first experience of the match play. So you asked me to come prepared with a few stats to sort of break down and lay out the tournament for you. So starts on Saturday and it will run for 8 days with the final next Sunday. So we can sort of do a mid-tournament review next week, and no doubt I can change my prediction at that point. There are 32 players. It is a leg format. So the first round is first to 10 legs. The round of 16 is first to 11 legs. Quarterfinals are first to 16. Semis first to 17. And the final first to 18 legs. So obviously it gets a little bit of a longer drawn out game as we go later into the tournament. The winner gets 200k. And when you look at the opening round matches, with only being 32 players, it's the top 32 players. It makes out for a real star-studded and prestigious tournament, and is one that is considered by many darts fans as a personal favourite. So what I've asked for you, lads, it is leg play. Blackpool, it always brings a great crowd as well. Some of my favourite darting memories are from that tournament. Probably my biggest one is when Freddie Flintoff got invited into the commentary booth and witnessed a 9-darter. I think, Sam, you've seen it before, and it's absolutely brilliant. But that was from the match play many, many years ago. But what I did ask is for you all, as always, to bring your winner, your predicted winner, but also a dark horse. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone outside of sort of the main ones that you expect to win, but someone that could really, go really far, maybe get to the semis, maybe get to the final, and maybe be a surprising winner, because the usual names, your Van Gerwens, your Smiths, your Price, they can't win every single tournament. I have no doubt that at least one of you has picked at least one of those names, and maybe I have as well, but you never know who can win it. It's such a star-studded tournament. It's not like the World Championship where the top players get 1 or 2 games to ease themselves in. You're playing a top player right from the very start. So Kemp, we'll go around the room. We'll start with winners, or should we start with dark horses? What do you want to do? Do you want to go outside bet?
Dark horse first.
Yeah. Dark horse first. Okay.
We'll go dark horse first, mate, and then we'll all put our name to the one person that we're going with for the win. So who's your dark horse? Who do you fancy to maybe upset a few and get really deep into the tournament and potentially be a real outside winner? So
there's a couple, and I must admit they are heart predictions. They absolutely are heart predictions rather than head predictions. We've got Stephen Bunting at 150 to 1, my boy. Bottom boy in the stable. Sam's never had the pleasure of seeing Stephen Bunting take the hockey. What an absolute...
I've seen him now.
Have you?
I've watched it a few times. I like the little smirk he does as he's throwing.
That's it. I didn't think you'd seen him because obviously you watched the World Championship.
Was it UK Open, maybe?
Yes, I think it could have been. Yeah.
Now, Sam, you've gone balls deep on darts, haven't
you?
Mate,
I've been all in.
He's watching ITV4, mate. He's got PDC membership. He's watching. He's watching. Yeah.
Literally, I've had ITV4 darts on and everything. I've been balls deep since January.
Oh, fantastic news. So Stephen Bunting, my boy, bottom boy in the stable. God, imagine if he won, that'd be absolutely unbelievable. That's my heart pick. But my realistic outside chance, I'm going Dave Chisnell. I've always liked Dave Chisnell. I've always thought he's a good player, very likeable bloke. He played in the Premier League a couple of times when I've been to see it, and I love his entrance theme. So Dave Chisnell is going to be my outsider at 25 to 1, and hopefully Chizzy can do the business and get himself back to the upper echelons of the darts world.
Well, I'm actually going to jump in now because we're talking about dark horses, because mine is Gary Anderson. Currently listed at 25 to 1, and he plays Chisnell in the first round on Saturday in the last game of the day. So I thought I'll jump in there. I think Gary Anderson, look, I've said it a couple of times before. He is my favourite darts player of all time. Absolutely phenomenal. His performances in the Premier League and the World Championships when he was at the peak of his powers. Such an entertaining player to watch. Dropped off in recent years because of injuries, but I think the World Cup and that strong performance with Peter Wright, who hasn't been in the best form himself, there were little sprinklings in there of the Gary Anderson of old. Is he going to be that player that is competing for World Championships, multiple, as he has done in the past? Probably not, but some really good stats. In his last 200 legs, he's averaging over 96, which is really strong, and it's right up there with the top players in the world. He scored 63 rounds of between 171 and 180, which again is up there. It's more than a Nathan Aspinall, it's more than a Johnny Clayton. It's right up there with your Gerwin Price and your Van Gerwins. His 100 plus checkouts is sat at 16, which is tied third only behind Johnny Clayton and James Wade. So some of the stats in terms of his recent games, he does seem like he's finding a little bit of form. And to be honest, to Chizzy, I've liked him in the past, but again, someone that's not the player that he has been in the past, and he's due to play either Cross or Darryl Gurney in the round of 16, who again aren't the players that they have been in the past. So I think this is a real great opportunity for Anderson for the first time in a while to get really deep into a singles tournament. So I do like Anderson at 25-1 as my dark horse.
I think I think I'll jump in here. And by the way, I'm just having a quick look over the opening round fixtures here. I think it's a good job old Kempy swiveled from Stephen Bunting of his dark horse, because his first game in is playing Gerwin Price, so it would have been right up against it from the start. I have had my heart set on a pick up until about 30 seconds ago. Now my dark horse.
I was about 2 hours ago, mate. About 2 hours ago. Like for 2 days, I've had my pick and my dark horse, and I changed it about 2 hours ago. Joe Cullen was originally my dark horse at 66-1, and then I had a proper look at stuff and I changed to Gary Anderson. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I had my heart set on Dimmy van der Berg as my dark horse, and the logic behind it was it was unbelievable in the World Cup. It was arguably one of the players of the tournament that obviously didn't go on to win it. He's just in. I think they've just had a Polish Open, and he got beat in the final by Van Gerwen. So he's playing some throwing some fantastic darts at the minute. However, I then seen something that just kind of didn't sit right with me, and I mentioned earlier that I've got a couple of statos for you about the darts, and I found a darts form guide over the last 200 legs. Everybody who's currently in last 200 legs. Number one is probably easy to guess. It's Gerwin Price at number one.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I've seen there when I was given the stats for Anderson.
Yeah, number two. Now, number two is the one I might just. I don't know if it's quite classed as a dark horse. I think it is, because I think you look your favourites, aren't you?
Yeah, he's in the grey area, isn't he? Like he's just outside the top three.
Yeah, it's Johnny Clayton, isn't it? And obviously, his current average at the minute is averaging 97.86 at the minute, which is unbelievable.
It's the highest amongst those players.
It is, yeah. I didn't even realise that. I just assumed it would Gerwin Price. Yeah, Gerwin Price beating him on doubles.
Price, sorry, you're right. It is just Price.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, that was. But then again, I looked at the guy below him, and I had an even bigger reason to pick him, and it's Luke Humphries. Purely off the back of the World Cup, I think he might have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, Rob Cross has had that number two to Michael Smith, and he just did absolutely nothing. He weren't capable of carrying Smith when Smith were dropping. That's when you need from your number two. And I think Luke Humphries has got a pretty good stage here to show what England could have had going into the into the World Cup. So yeah, I've changed at the last second. I'm going to go Luke Humphries.
Interesting. Currently fourth favourite in the book, in the sort of bookies odds. But Aggy, who have you got for your dark horse, mate?
I am probably going to butcher the pronunciation. Dirk van Duivenbode.
No, that's the guy that
is
the earring guy, isn't he?
He ended up signing up for Holland, didn't he? Because when Van Gerwen dropped out due to dental work, he filled in for him.
Yeah, he's 22-1.
Pun counter, pun.
What happened?
Work filled in.
Yes! Unbelievable. Love that.
He's 22-1, and already this year he has won 3 Players' Championships and he's been in 2 Euro Tour finals. I think he's in a fair bit of form, and I don't think he's going to go all the way and win it, but I think that sort of form will certainly put him in a good position to.
Good job you picked him for your dark horse to win it, then, isn't it, pal?
He's not someone to compete quite well.
Is it? Okay.
I've got someone separate to win it, don't worry.
Well, why don't you kick us off with your winner then? Who are you putting your name to? Is it
hold
Peter
on, before we go on to winners? I don't know if it's sitting right with me that I'm picking 4th favourite as a dark horse. I didn't really realise it was that high up. What do you reckon?
Well, it depends who you've got
Luke
for your winner, I
Humphries, did
suppose.
you say?
Yeah,
He's 14-1. So how do you see that as an outsider or not?
Depends who his winner is, isn't it? If his
I've gone for
100
Chizzy, and
to 1,
Chizzy's 25-1, so there's not that much difference there.
all right.
So
Yeah,
I'll keep
it
with it. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I'll keep it then. No
I think
problem.
if you'd have gone like Michael Smith, I think.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Well,
That's fair enough. But go on then, Aggie. You snake draft. Who are you putting your name to as the winner of the match play of darts?
Luke Humphries.
Ooh.
Down as the guy to win it. For similar to what Sam said, he's missed out on the Premier League, he's missed out on the World Cup, and with that chip on his shoulder, I think he's got like a bit of a point to go out there and prove that he should have been the guy to partner with Michael Smith. I
mean, that makes my dark horse sound even worse now. Aggie making him as favourite.
He's you right off there. That's Lorraine. That's Lorraine making you wear a Real Madrid shirt. That is.
Yeah, I'll go next with my. I've got a decent form. I know. I moved away from Van Gogh in the Premier League, but predicted Michael Smith in the World Championship. Predicted Rob Thornton in the senior darts as well. And I have also gone for Luke Humphries as my pick to win the match play of darts. I mentioned when you were talking, Sam, about your dark horse that I had changed my picks a couple of hours ago. I did originally have my name to Michael Van Gerwen, but again, it was niggling away at me. Completely agree with what you mentioned. Completely agree with what Aggie mentioned. He was very vocal about missing out on the Premier League. He was very vocal, well, not very vocal, but he missed out on the World Cup as well when he shouldn't have, based on form and the quality of play at the time. He's been absolutely brilliant on the European tour. He's lost a lot of weight. He's worked a lot on his mental health because he has struggled quite a bit over the last 18 months, and he's really put himself in a place where, similar to Michael Smith in the World Cup, the World Championship preview, where I spoke about sort of preparing himself for that big moment. I do think Luke Humphries is getting to that point now, and I think putting him in a position where he's with the part of the 32 best players in the world, this is his moment to prove why he should have been in the Premier League, prove why he should be in the England squad for any international games. And like I said, originally I went with Van Gerwen, but the form Humphries is in, I'm happy to put my name to him. So I'll go with you on Aggie that one.
Well, I'm gonna retract my dark horse then. I can't have a dark horse as 2 people having favourite. That's a bit outrageous from me. Johnny Clayton, where's he currently sat at in the odds order?
I think I would say he's less of a dark horse than Humphries.
He's 7th favourite.
Yeah, he's 18-1.
I'm happy to go with that. I'm gonna swap mine out and put Johnny Clayton in as my dark horse then if he's 7th favourite. So I think he's got a tough opening game there. It's against Gabriel Clemens, and he had an unbelievable World Cup, didn't he? So
he did. I looked at him at a potential dark horse, but I say he's got a tough run. It's all tough. That's the quality, and I think darts is in such a good place. You look at the history of the match play in the World Championships. You look at like when Phil Taylor was winning. You put in match play and go on Wikipedia and look on previous winners. It's for
Phil
years.
Taylor, Phil Taylor.
Yeah. Whereas now you go on Bet365, which I've got in front of me, and you load up the odds. Again, the depth is phenomenal. A De Souza who's played in the Premier League and was brilliant, 150-1. Clemens, who, like you just said there, Sam, was brilliant in the World Cup. He's 100-1. Chris Dobey, who we know has come on leaps and bounds and won a big tournament this year, 80-1. These are class players.
Currently 7th. Currently 7th in the form guide as well. Chris Dobey is overall.
Yeah, and he's sat at 80-1. So that really shows the depth of strength when it comes to darts at the minute. I think, honestly, Sam, if you get a good chance to watch this tournament, I think you'll really enjoy it. Leg format, it's fast, it's rapid, and again the field is just strong. There's no easy wins, there's no easy games whatsoever. But you've changed your dark horse. Is it a Gerwin Price? Is it a Michael Smith? Is it a Michael Van Gerwen? Are you going for one of the big 3? or are you going for someone just outside that as your main person, your main prediction for the match play?
Yeah, I did mention, didn't I, earlier, that my two picks were quite boring, and it would have been, from that moment, it was going to be Van der Berg and Van Gerwen, which would have been quite boring. I've changed one. I ain't going to change the second, so I'm going to go for him defending his title. I'm going to stick with Michael Van Gerwen. I've got no reason to waver from him, just off the back of that the Polish Open. So yeah, I think he'll come good.
Yeah, that's fair, mate. Like I said, I've had his name on my phone in my notes all week, and then last minute I've changed it. So, yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Kempy closes off, mate, with your prediction. Who's the main man for you for the match play?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Sam. The man is absolutely spot on, as we've learnt about darts predictions in the past few months, the past few months. So Michael Van Gerwen to defend his crown. I think he was a bit unfortunate towards the back end of the Premier League, obviously picking up the injury that he did, and then the dental issue that he had at the World Cup of Darts. So I think he'll really want to get back now. He's fully fit, fully ready to go, motivated, and I think he'll be wanting to put out a statement saying, "Surprise, surprise, motherfuckers! The king is back." And I think he'll get his arm raised at the end of the night. So I'm going to go Michael Van Gerwen as my pick to win it all.
Just an interesting stat on that form guide as well, what I looked at. Michael Smith, currently 9th in the form guide. So you've got Gerwin Price 1, Johnny Clayton 2, Humphries 3, Aspinall 4, which I'm surprised no one mentioned as a potential dark horse. Van Gerwen at 5, Gary Anderson at 6, Dobie at 7, Hette, your boy, at 8, Michael Smith at 9, and James Wade at 10, making a career renaissance. So it's
James. And a shout out to James Wade as well. If people haven't seen, or if there's a darts fan listening that hasn't seen his interview with Simon Jordan, very, very, very good interview.
No, I've not seen that.
Good mate, get
really
it watched.
His chat about Eric Bristow was very good.
Very good insight as to the mental fortitude and strength that you need to have to be a top level athlete, whether it be darts or anything else. So highly recommend you watch that, Sam. And
will do.
Didn't like James Wade before I saw that interview really, but a lot more respect for him now, and hopefully he can put in a good showing at the weekend. I've got a lot of time for James Wade.
Yeah, I mentioned to Sam, but obviously everyone watching the match play, because it is really good. The strength is there, but if you only have if you only have time for one game in the first round, Hette against Rock is around 3 p.m. on Sunday. So if you can get your feet up and stick that on, that should be an absolute cracker. And to be fair, that Sunday afternoon session looks absolutely brilliant. There's 4 games. So yeah, if you're not doing anything on Sunday, get your feet up and stick that on.
So what channel's it on?
That's a good question, actually. Let me have a look. It's usually on RTV. But let me have a look. Just
you think I'm watching a first round game that doesn't involve Steve Bunting? You're having a fucking laugh. I'm backing my boy all the way,
mate. Fucking watch it. Or it might be on Sky, actually, because it is. Yeah. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's on Sky Sports Action.
Thank you very much.
There you go. So yeah, if you watch any chunk of the first round matches, make it Sunday afternoon, because that looks like a brilliant session. But it's rapid. It's like the World Cup. You've got games Sunday evening, and then games Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening as well. Yeah, really, really good. So watch it. Right, that's it, lads, for episode 57. Aggie, how long was that? You're just moaning about it being a quick episode. Are we looking about 3 hours?
1 hour 47 minutes.
She's a beast. She's a beast.
She's a beast. But look, once we get started, there's plenty to talk about. So, lads, before we close off, the usual plans for the weekend. Aggie, what you got?
I don't. I think I might be going to watch Chesterfield, Sheffield United. That's not.
Boo! Fuck you! Up the blades! Up them!
Still going to go, but yeah, I might be going there on
Saturday.
Still going to go.
Prime Louis Spence, that prime.
Like a whippet.
I'm not sure for the Sunday yet. I'm not decided.
That's fair, mate. That's fair. Darts. There you go. Stick it on.
Yeah.
But Kemp, you'll also be back at town, like I said, holding the world record for shortest time between sitting in the home end and the away end. Usually the weekends consist of some kind of golf. Is it the same again, or is there a little bit of a break after the intensity that was your holiday in Spain?
No, there's no golf this weekend lined up or planned or anything like that. Saturday morning, I think I'm going to go and do some swimming. I think.
Nice.
I made swimming part of my exercise routine last year, and then kind of wanted to focus more on muscle building rather than endurance work. So kind of knocked it on the head. But while I was in Spain, I was doing a bit of swimming in the pool and really enjoyed it. And our good friend Niall Morley, Nidog, showed a keen interest in wanting to learn how to properly swim. He knows how to swim, obviously, but the front stroke and the breathing techniques and stuff like that. So I think I might be giving Dougie a little bit of a swimming lesson on Saturday morning, and hopefully I can catch him in the changing rooms as well. And
I was
Saturday
just about
afternoon,
to say he's also had an interest in skinny dipping, hasn't he? Based on a couple of videos I've seen.
Oh, don't you just know it? Who do you think recorded them videos?
I know you recorded it.
And then on Saturday afternoon, as you mentioned, I'm going to the home of Adam's Tin Pot Spyrites, and Sheffield United are going to get a 10-0 win to get revenge for Matlock Town in the prestigious Chatsworth Cup trophy or whatever the bollocks it is. So fuck you, Aggie. Fuck the Spyrites up the blades. Sunday, I don't know what I'm going to do. Sunday, I think it's TBD. Dawson.
Like it, mate. I've got nothing planned this weekend. Out for a meal tomorrow night, being Friday night. So depending on when you're listening. Saturday I'm going to go to Meadowhall for a bit, just have a bit of a walk around, couple of birthdays for family and stuff, so just have a potter about, no rush, get a bit of food and do a little bit of shopping, and then Sunday do next to absolutely nothing. I've got my eyes on that darts now. I've seen the schedule, so my eyes are on getting the feet up and watching that, so that sounds good to me. Sam, is it still belt tightening? Is Star calling you? What's your plans this weekend?
No, none of that this weekend, I don't think. Just do me a favour, when you're in Meadowhall, go and have a peep right corner at Clubhouse. Go and you might have a spare $8 go and chuck on dartboard while you're there. It's a bit of class entertainment. Are you going with DJ?
Yeah, we're going to do car valeting thing and then just go for a walk around. Like I said,
you and DJ at the darts.
Weekend. Yeah, she'd fucking batter me, mate. Stab me at neck.
Nice. I'm not doing a deal this weekend at all. Tomorrow night, Boring's probably going shopping. Saturday is completely clear. I'm not doing anything Saturday. Sunday, however, I think I might be going to Costco. So when you kept saying watch Sunday darts, I thought I don't think I can because
might have to have it on phone while you're walking round.
I think I'll be going to Costco Sunday. So Saturday I will be doing nothing. I don't think so. I will be watching probably plenty of darts. So yeah, happy days.
I like it, mate. I'm craving a Costco visit just to go to the food court for a pizza slice and hot dog. So
absolutely,
do it for me, mate, if you won't mind.
It's a staple, isn't it? That's what I go literally every time. Slice of pepperoni pizza, £1.50 hot dog with a refillable drink. Little hack I do: fill my drink up, take it round with me, and then I fill it back up on way out as well. So I take my drink. Class, mate.
Usually it's after, so I've not tried that one yet. But
go before. Yeah, go before.
I like it. Probably a good idea as well. Shopping around Costco on an empty stomach's not good for anyone, is it?
Exactly.
Fair point. Nice little hack that. But lads, that's episode 57 in the books. We're fast approaching 60, and before we know it, we'll be celebrating the century. But class as always, enjoyed it. Good to have you all back. We'll be back next week.
Enjoy your night.
Enjoy your night.
Bye.
Bye.